Okay, so thanks for joining everyone today. Again, like in previous months, I'm going to take you through what we've improved here in the last month, and then most of the time we're going to spend playing with the system. As with always, if you have any questions that pop up, please feel free to jump in by chat, and then we'll have an open Q&A at the end of the session. Okay, so for us, it was definitely quite a busy month here with new features coming in. So in no particular order, I'm just going to take it bottom to the top here from our change log, and you can always get to that documentation, neuralseek.com/changelog. So one of the big things that we did was we introduced a new endpoint type to help connect to lots of different sources, right? So we have some on-prem customers that were using VLLM instead of Hugging Face TGI. And so that led us to release a more generic OpenAI style endpoint. So basically, you can now connect to VLLM endpoints, or lots of other hosting providers have started to pop online that all support OpenAI style endpoints. It's kind of what the industry is starting to consolidate around. I know Cloudflare just came out with their OpenAI compatible endpoint for some of their models. So that is there and live now. We're using it at quite a few customers and some on-prem ones as well. We also added Google Vertex as a new provider into the platform and brought in their Gemini models, so 1.5 Pro and Flash. And so those are available and they are multimodal, right? So you can use them inside of mAIstro to do image to text things as well, just like you can with some of the Bedrock models and OpenAI. Okay, bunch of stuff came in mAIstro. So number one, there's a new output type. So we now do formatted output, which allows us to do fun things like charting and dynamic charting. We give you a raw style output. So for anything that we chart or create, like you can ask NeuralSeek to create a web page for you, or write code and execute it, create a chart or a set of charts. For all of that stuff, you can get the raw output that you can copy and paste into something else as a new tab in there. Likewise, we do PDF outputs of the formatted output and in the raw text. So if you create a dashboard with charts per se, you could pull that down as a PDF and save it directly. So it definitely helps out a lot with the business use of mAIstro to quickly do things like, I want to read from an endpoint, create a chart for it, and save it out to a PDF. That's like 4 seconds of work. Next big thing inside of mAIstro is what we call hover menus. And so in talking to user groups over the last few months, we found that the idea and concept of variables inside of mAIstro was something that people always had a hard time wrapping their head around when they started playing with that tool. So the hover menus really aims to solve that variable problem for the business user. So basically, we're going to show you in any visual block what the variables are that are defined either as secrets or user-defined variables or dynamically created variables, or allow you to just create a new one. And since we've launched that, I mean, I use that constantly. It was one of those things I didn't know I needed it until we had it, and now I can't live without it. So I'm going to demo that to you as we go through. It's pretty fun. We've really launched a whole bunch of integrations in the last month or two. So we are natively integrated into watsnext.governance. And so we've given an example template, both a quick and easy, plus you can do whatever you want. So we allow you to dump all of the runtime semantic details, runtime performance, the HAP, prompt injection, all of those things dynamically out to watsnext governance. So when watsnext governance is able to take action on those with one of their future releases, all of that stuff will be out there so you can link across multiple instances of NeuralSeek and do higher level governance activities on these pieces. And we make it pretty easy to connect as well, because right now connecting into watsnext governance is not super well documented. So we lay out for you exactly how to get that up and running quickly. Bunch of new integrations natively came in. So Jira, Trello, GitHub, Slack, S3, and then a bunch of web searches were all launched here recently. And then we are going to be coming out soon. This is a little bit of a future of an integrations marketplace. So basically allowing both an open-ended ability to create extensions. So in Maestro today, you can create templates and save templates. What we're going to allow for you to do in the future is create bundled integrations. So you can integrate to a custom endpoint on your company side, or create an integration to say like Workday and bundle that so that a business user would be able to select it from the left-hand nav in Maestro and use it as if it was a native Maestro integration. They wouldn't know the difference. And that's going to open up a whole sea of possibility for us in Maestro, both to allow for like user contributed and a marketplace of integrations so that we can more easily bring these things in and expand the footprint of downstream applications that we can connect to natively. So that'll be coming pretty soon. Likewise, in Maestro, we've added a bunch more functionality around JSON. So as you connect in with downstream systems, web services, things like that, the ability to subset and do things with JSON in a really easy manner is critical to turning that into usable information. So we've tried to break down and distill all of the basics needed around JSON manipulation, make that easy for a business user, and then bundle that into predefined function inside of Maestro. And likewise with JSON, escaping was always an issue. So again, our user groups would always tell us that trying to escape JSON inside the UI was problematic. So now we're going to do that automatically for you. You're just going to drop in whatever you need, and we'll automatically escape that stuff as long as you're using the visual editor. Couple updates into governance. So enhancing the token insights tab, added new charting around question resolution, and a couple other tweaks around there. And additionally, on the logs tab, now we show you flags around PII, half activation, prompt injection actions. So those logs show exactly where those things happened. So for your SMEs that are going in to try to track down how are people abusing the system, what are the negative actions being taken, what are we blocking, they can see it right there in the logs, and it's a lot easier to track back and figure out who is doing what. Any questions on these before I dive in and start showing you some of this stuff? Okay, great. So let's go into the NeuralSeek interface and we'll start taking a peek at things. All right, so under configuration, right, you're going to see that for the LLMs, right, we've got a couple new sections in here. The first is going to be Google Vertex, right? And they have, again, all of the new Gemini models. And if you haven't played much with Google Vertex, they do break down their models in pricing between 128K context and the 1 in 2 million token context. So we allow you to subset those to make sure that you stay in the pricing range that you want. So again, behind the scenes, our tokenizer and our context clipper will make sure that you stay in those areas. So if you want to use the full million context, you can use it. If you want to ensure that you stay on a lower cost tier, we'll help you do so. And then you'll see this new generic OpenAI compatible. And again, there's two endpoints to this, chat completions and normal completions, mirroring back up to the standard OpenAI endpoints, chat and completions. And this should work kind of across the board. We've tested it with lots of different providers that support the OpenAI style integration. When you get into it, there's actually a bunch of configuration options we give you. So you can pass API keys, Spirit keys, whatever. You can set the context length. So if you're using like VLLM, where context length is going to matter because you don't want to overload your server. You can set it here artificially. And then you can actually define what parameters of the JSON we're sending down into the model, right? Because we've definitely encountered some customers that have, let's say, an LLM proxy that they put in front that is very, very strict, meaning that it doesn't support things like top P or max tokens. And if you include it, it'll just bomb the transaction. So we allow you to dynamically control what tokens are sent here just by removing them from the list. So it allows you a lot of configuration option to make sure that you can fit in how you've set up those custom environments. Okay, you're going to see a lot of new pieces coming in around embedding models. Now, I didn't necessarily talk about it much in the changelog. Some of what you're seeing in this system is a little bit pre-release, but it will be coming out shortly. So there's the ability here to define custom embedding models. Now, NeuralSeek has an embedding model that we bundle. And there's also another one that we're going to be releasing that's a little bit more capable as well, and that one will be free. But just like with the normal LLMs, we're going to allow you to connect to really the world of providers of embedding models. We got AWS, Azure, watsonx is coming soon, plus additional providers of embedding models. You'll be able to select whatever model that you want and then drive it into the platform. Like today, we've got KB search and mAIstro in there. KB search for things like Milvus and Pinecone. We're going to be supporting some additional vector databases coming here soon as well. But then you'll also be able to drive the vectors that are used for the intent matching. And so that'll be coming soon as well. So like when I have vector similarity here, today, vector similarity uses the embedded NeuralSeek vector model. You'll be able to artificially change this to say, I want to use my preferred vector model for everything and drive it just like the normal language models into the functions you want using different embedding cards for every function if you wanted to. So a lot more flexibility around vector embeddings. Okay, let's jump over into mAIstro and start playing a bit. Okay, so first off, let's play a little bit with charting. So I'm in an environment here that has lots of different models connected. So I'm going to go connect out to Llama 370 billion. And let me just run this and I'll talk about it while it's running. So this one is going to go out and hit the weather.gov and grab the current weather conditions for this location. Then we're going to send that out to an LLM prompt that basically says, I want a chart back from this. Nothing too magical in here, right? It's really just saying, create me a temperature chart of this, a couple lines, output it as the canvas. And you can see right inside of mAIstro, I get a nice chart of the weather. And this could be anything. Like this is just an example here of, again, taking live weather data and then creating a chart dynamically inside of mAIstro. We can click over and see the raw data that came back from the LLM. Like this is what got created for code. And you can see it runs. It runs perfectly fine. The new tab here for PDF. If I wanted to, I could download the formatted version of this. And then boom, I've got that as a PDF that I can share with my department, with my resources. So I can take company data, I can chart it, I can send it out. And it's really just a couple seconds inside of mAIstro. So nice and easy and tight inside the system. Now, I had demoed this, I think, a few times before, but there is a brand new feature inside of mAIstro, either when you come in to the front here, or if you're still in, you just click on load, and that is the dynamic builder, right? For this, you just type in any use case, natural language, and we're going to show you a good starting template. Now, here's one that I came up with yesterday when I was on a call with a customer. I need to grab some personal data from Snowflake, look up each person in a Google search, then create a marketing blurb on each executive based on their details from Snowflake and what you find on Google. And so when I click on generate template, it's going to go out and try to build a Maestro template based on that. And here's what it came up with. And you can see it, like it created a pretty complicated one here. One that would take even me probably 5 or 10 minutes to build as I thought through how I wanted to do it. So much easier to use the auto builder, get a starting point, and then just tweak to how you want to do it. And I actually like what it built here. So it started out, it used our Snowflake connector, which is a great place to start. I'd need to know my connection details, right? But my data engineer would probably be able to help me with that. We talked about secrets, right? So inside of the system, I can see stuff like secrets. And for a lot of these usernames and passwords, probably the data engineer would want to define those as secrets. And if you don't know what a secret is, right, secrets are defined out on the configure tab. And they're meant to be a logical separation between data engineers and users of the system, right? So you can maintain security over passwords and databases and things like that. So only a select few of administrators can see those things, but everyone can use them, right? So when I'm back here in Maestro, I don't know what the secret is. I'll never see that password, but I get to use it. Likewise, we can see what all of the variables defined are, and I just highlight and click on it, and it will inject it into the text. Once I run this for the first time, then I might be able to see dynamic variables. Like I'll go back over to that other example and show you dynamic variables. But as it goes through, you can see that it automatically said, hey, because I said in my example statement, I want to look up each person, it said, hey, you need to do a loop to do that. So a good example here of it doing a variable loop, which is going to basically say for every person that comes back from this Snowflake query, do everything inside this block, which looks like a great place to start. Like I'm actually really impressed by what it came up with here. And so if I had a Snowflake instance up and running, this would probably run without further editing. Let's go back and look one more time at our charting, chart the temp. And I'll do this time with GPT. Cool. And you can see GPT came up with a little bit looking different chart. You'll find that most models give like some slight variation on how they want to build code, but quite a few models are capable. Now, because I ran this one time, you'll now see that my dynamic variables are populated, right? And so every dynamic variable that the system created is here visible to me, right? So I can use and I can select these things. And again, you can see what all your dynamic variables are always out in the Explorer Inspector, right? So this is what's come back from that post call. You can see all of the pieces here. I can select whatever I want and inject it into downstream just using those hover menus. I'll give a pause here. Were there any chat questions so far? Okay. Continuing on, another thing that we introduced in the last month or so was a search feature. So you can see the menu here on the left-hand side is getting quite large. So dynamic search for everything. And, I can search down by search Trello, and get to areas where I might not know where the thing is stored anymore. But I can quickly get to what I want. Jira. So search Jira, get Jira projects, add an issue. A lot of new functionality here in the integrations and a pretty easy way to search down into it. Likewise, on the example templates, we also have a search here as well. And so you can quickly get to what you want. On the examples, we've done quite a few of new examples around it. There's this watsonx governance integration. It's actually really easy to integrate now with watsonx governance. Essentially, you would be doing a seek through mAIstro, which is something that's easy to do. It's a one-button thing. Curate those results out, and then send them to watsonx governance. And again, the configuration here is really easy. It's just a three-parter. and we kind of walk you through exactly where to get these pieces of information from. I don't know if we had talked about it last time, but virtual knowledge base is something that's coming up quite a bit. So I'm going to touch on it one more time here. So virtual knowledge base allows for you to do anything you want inside of mAIstro and then bundle it together for use as the knowledge base of Seek, right? And basically to do this, there are two little magic connectors, right? And these exist here up underneath RAG tools. Let me unfilter and go to RAG tools, virtual knowledge base in and out. And when you click on them, it shows you what is magically populated for you, right? So there's a bunch of variables that will arrive to the beginning of this flow, things like original query, context query, language and language code. And so you can use those to drive conditions. You can use those to do lookups, whatever you want to do with them. And then on the output, um, we expect you to fill in these pieces, right? So the trusted information is sent to the LLM, coverage scores, confidence scores, a URL if you found one, and then the document name. So you can see in the example here, we've just hard-coded a few of these things. You can set these dynamically if you're able to, right? Using whatever logic you like. Now, once I have this virtual knowledge base on the configuration, all I would do is in knowledge base connection, I'd come over to virtual knowledge base. And then if I have that saved as a virtual knowledge base, the system will know that and this will be populated. Let me open up an instance that has that running. So this one has a virtual knowledge base. And in knowledge base connection, you can see that there is one mAIstro template that qualifies for this. Its name is virtual, and I have it selected. And that's as easy as it gets to configure this. I can go into mAIstro and I can look up that template, user templates virtual, and this is what's running. It's essentially our example template. And what this is doing is it's doing a dynamic Google search in parallel with a website scrape. So it's doing a single page website scrape of our documentation site, joining those things together and sending that as the trusted information. So I can do, lots of fun things with that. Like I can say, and when I ask this question, again, it's doing that live Google search. It's doing error calling web. Let's try it one more time. And it didn't like the confidence. And let's see what came back. So you can see that we got a lot of information back from the LLM, and it did not like the confidence, so it blocked it. But you can see that the virtual knowledge base did pull back the information. Here's the Google search joined in with the stuff from the language model. Okay, let's head back over into mAIstro and one more time with the change log. Okay, so we've gone through the charting, the formatted output, the raw output, PDF, the hover menus, the integration with What's Next governance. Now, let me show you one more piece over here. So in mAIstro, there's an additional What's Next governance portion of the integration. When you're in What's Next governance, we also allow you to do a raw JSON. So instead of this one, which is a formatted response where we handle all the back end, this one we allow you to control the JSON that is sent. So you can send anything you want over into What's Next governance. Okay, let's look a little bit more at some of the JSON functions that we allow. Okay, so under modify data, you're going to see a new thing here called the JSON toolbox. So again, all of these are some new features that we've dropped in that allow you to do a lot of manipulation around those JSON pieces. So JSON tools to clean up JSON that may be coming out of a lesser LLM. One thing that we deal with quite a bit is if you're using a smaller LLM like Mistral or even sometimes Mixtral, you may get JSON that is improperly formatted or missing a closing curly bracket or maybe the coding will be wrong. We see that often. The JSON tools will automatically correct stuff like that. So typically, you would take coming off of the LLM and I do a send to LLM and then I immediately do a JSON tools just to clean up the output before I start doing anything with it. And then from there, you'll probably JSON to variables, right? So I'd be able to take whatever's coming in out of that JSON and save it out to system variables and then use it in a very easy manner in downstream. So that's a typical pattern we'll see for building. We've got things in here to help subset, if you have a huge JSON like you saw come back from the weather company hit, I might just want a little portion of that just tomorrow and not the whole week. So you can do that subsetting with the array filter and the key filter. That'll help you chop those things down to a manageable size. Okay, let's go look at some governance updates. All right, so on the overview tab, we talked about question resolution. So again, this is a big metric that some of our customers are asking for of like above and beyond, how well am I doing at actually responding back to questions and not hitting the HAP filter, not hitting the minimum confidence, not hitting things that are blocking answers from users. And so in general, right, this is going to give you the big warm and fuzzy, how am I doing overall? And again, we drop that in on the semantic insights side as well. We've updated token insights as well with some additional models and some additional visibility inside of here. So again, the model cost comparison, kind of a great tool, a lot of positive feedback from across the board that we're seeing from customers on giving them visibility, not only on capability of models, but decision-making process of what model should we use? Because that's often a question that we get of like, am I on the right model and how do I know and where should I go from here? So if you haven't seen the token insights, basically what we're doing is we've stacked every single model that we have inside of NeuralSeek with a capability score, basically taken from open source ratings, rankings, and then our subjective tests with these models, all sort of weighted together to give an overall score of those models. And then we stack those in line with what their published list prices are. One feature here coming is we're going to allow you for you to override any of the prices in here, because there may be some models that you get preferred pricing for that's better than list, whereas others you might have to pay for list. And then we'll dynamically chart this for you. You can see, in this instance, I was using GPT-4o for quite a bit, and that generated a decent amount of cost. And what the chart's telling me is that Llama 3 is just slightly below in capability of GPT-4o. It's lesser in capability, but it's less than half the cost. So I, as a business owner, might want to look at this and say, do I really need GPT-4o to answer the questions that I'm answering? Or might Llama 3 be good enough? And I could chop more than half my cost of this whole solution off. And I might want to step down into that. Likewise, GPT-4 Turbo, if I went to that one, it's like double the cost of 4o. And I want to probably avoid that one because of the cost associated with it. And a lot of interest here in the system analytics. And I'm going to increase my time frame window here a bit so I can get the charting. And so for this instance, I haven't been using it too much, but you can see the universe here. Definitely some models that seemed a little bit slow over the last week or two. Some models are a bit faster. a lot of our customers are giving us good positive feedback over the universe performance here, so they can help keep track of which models are trending towards faster, which models are trending towards slower, so they can say, is this a problem with me, or is this possibly the model itself is getting overloaded at the provider? Maybe I need to consider jumping to a different model or reducing the amount of information that I'm asking for it. It really helps troubleshoot. Like we've had a few customers come and say, hey, I'm suddenly hitting timeout. Why is it hitting timeout? And then we just direct them over here to system performance and say, well, this is exactly why. The LLM is, in this case, taking 21 seconds to come back. There's your problem. And then it's kind of like a light bulb saying, hey, well, that's easy. I'll just switch to a different model or decrease my verbosity or maybe both of those and get back into a good place. Okay, let's look at the logs tab here. All right, and let me kind of roll through some logs because I had played with this one and gotten some HAP activations and some other pieces. Oh, there we go. So again, when you see HAP here, we're going to filter it, right? Because folks might have sensitive eyes. But you can, if you want, click on the eyeball icon and we will show you what the person actually asked, which is, again, a request that we had from some customers of like, it's great to know that HAP was filtered, but I want to see it. And in the customer's case, it was interesting because they had a product acronym that was actually an illegal drug acronym. So we had it as HAP because of the illegal drug name, but for them it was a perfectly legitimate question. So they were kind of confused why they were hitting it. So again, this kind of helps with showing those pieces. And likewise, here's a PII. For PII, we will not allow you to see it unless inside of your configuration under the PII settings, you specifically allow for PII to be shown to people, because this is an entirely different issue. Okay, that takes me through a lot of the new features here that I want to show you. I'm going to take you through a couple more things before I break to open question that have come up that I think people have missed in like the last two or three different change. So in configuration, one thing that comes up a lot is there a way to try out a configuration before I save it off? And absolutely. We launched this a few months ago, and it's called Proposed Changes. So when I come in, let's say I want to switch off of GPT-3.5 here and on to choose a better model. Yeah, let's go over to Llama 3. Right? So I can propose changes, right? So I made this change, and instead of saving it, I'm going to say, Llama 3. And when I save this under proposed changes, it's going to come into the change log here as a proposal. You can see it looks different, right? And in the action here, you're going to see I have two options. I can get rid of the proposal, or I could roll forward by activating that proposal and then take the current configuration to it. But basically, what proposals does for you and why it's important is everywhere in the UI. Let's say I go over to Seek. I can see these proposals, right? There's my proposal I just made, swap to Llama 3, and I could try it out without having the baggage of having to save a new configuration. So I can have essentially multiple configurations in a production environment that doesn't impact production. I can just play with it here, and if I don't like it, I can get rid of it. Or I can roll forward to it if my SMEs say, hey, this is great, I want it. And you can see here's how Llama 3 responds to it. Likewise, on the Home tab, if I'm inputting questions, I can choose my proposal as the one I want to use. And on the API, I can use it as well. Like when I'm connecting in here through Seek on the API, I would simply use the proposal ID right here on the API, and that will be the one that's used. And again, you get that proposal ID underneath change logs. This is the proposal ID. So that's what you would send. So it makes for encapsulating a different configuration really, really easy. Okay, a couple more things that have come up with some customers recently that I don't think people are realize that they could do. Um, so number one, sometimes folks have issues or a need to get URLs as part of a response, right? And that includes like URLs that might be part of a knowledge base answer, but not linked as part of the knowledge base, right? So maybe you have a large document that has embedded URLs in it, but you don't have a URL field in your KB. This kind of pops up a lot. Like if I've scraped a PDF, I don't know what the URL of the PDF came from, but the PDF itself has embedded URLs. If you come into answer engineering and preferences, when you select very verbose, that's going to prompt the LLM that you want things like URLs, right? So if you want URLs, I'd recommend staying at verbose. If you don't want URLs, I'd recommend staying lower than verbose. And then you can fine tune answer response underneath prompt engineering, right? You can come into weight tuning here. And when you're in weight tuning, maximum tokens will let you fine tune your answer response length. So let's say that you don't want URLs, but you want a long response. I would come in here, I would bump up my maximum tokens and leave myself one step less than verbose. Likewise, if you want URLs, but you want a shorter answer, I'd go to very verbose and I would turn down the maximum tokens. So it gives you greater control, right? It's there for your use when you're fine tuning the system. And then a question that had popped up the other day, right? So now that we have the ability to have lots and lots of model cards, you can see in my instance here, I've got like what, 15 different model cards here. It's important to note you should not have multiple model cards selected for the same function unless you are sure you want to load balance across them, right? In some cases, that's very valid, right? I may have two model cards activated, and I want them to be load balanced because I'm using a different API key, right? I'm using those different API keys to get around restrictions of tokens per second or other things. Maybe I want to load balance across region of the LLM. We do that for you automatically just by having the multiple model cards selected. What you don't want to do is to have multiple model cards that are different selected, right? So if I had Llama 2 and GPT-3.5 both selected to seek, what I would be getting is answers coming randomly from either GPT-3.5 or Llama. And what that would show is like wildly different answers because the way that Llama 2 is going to respond is going to be very different than the way GPT-3.5 is going to respond. And so you might say, like, why am I having like seemingly great answers sometimes, but really bad answers other times? If you have something like this set up, that would cause it, right? And we've definitely seen some customers that had 3 or 4 cards set up with all of them selected. And then they were saying, why are things so random? Well, that's why it's random. You're asking it to be. Okay. Over on the Curate tab, there's been some subtle background tweaks and improvements over here. Again, we've started to improve the ability of creating examples here. A couple months back, we had introduced some options here around removing some of the auto-generated examples and recreating them. This is especially useful, let's say that you've merged several intents together. If you've merged them together, sometimes you may have generated examples that start to get really far away from where you want to take this intent to. So you just click on the button to remove the examples, right? And then you're going to be just left with just what the user said. And then you can come in and regenerate afterwards, right? Or add in your own. And that can help fine tune what's coming in on this intent. For all of these, there is the dynamic link over into the governance tab. So I can see like where this thing is used and get filtering down in. Like you can see this question hasn't hit recently. I can change my time period, but the filter comes in automatically across all these tabs. All right, we've got some documentation here, but I can remove that and then pop back in. Again, all of these tabs are filterable. If you have categories set, they'll be first by category and then by intent under category. And again, from the governance, all of these things link back. So if there's a URL, we'll take you to it. So very helpful for folks wanting to track down, well, where are my answers coming to and why? You know, like where did this thing come from? We found a lot of different customers actually be surprised that the RAG solution found web pages that they really didn't even know they had live in production that maybe had old or outdated information. You know, because they would see it saying, hey, we're giving the wrong answer. But then through these links from curate down into governance, we'd be able to quickly prove to say, well, this is what is live on your website, and here's where it came from. And then there's usually a mad scramble to get that page down or updated. Okay, that takes us through most of the change logs and the pieces that I had on top of mind. Anything in the Q&A or chat that we want to talk about?
Garrett, there is one. It's I'm going to spell it for you. CLAUDE.
Yep, Claude 3.5. It is. And so when you're on, so basically every single model that we have is in the comparison. And the way the comparison is going to work is as you come in and look, we're going to pick 3 models below and 3 models above at random from the group, right? Basically within 3 capability points of the model you're using. So in this case, oh yeah, you can actually see right there, Claude Sonnet is one that came back. It's listed right there at the top. But especially as you get lower in the capability, there's literally dozens of models that are all very, very close in capability. So you might not see every single model at that. We try to give you a dynamic comparison of ones in that area. And as you refresh the page, you will get different ones. So you can kind of refresh a few times or change your date window and you'll see a few different pop in. Okay, how does the Snowflake integration work? It's fairly easy. Inside of mAIstro, we've got a direct connector for Snowflake. And so it's underneath integrations databases, and it sits right here. And so sort of like connecting to a normal database, or the way I like to do it is you just come into the auto builder, right? Let's clear this out. And something like that, hit generate, and it should help us out here. Let's see what it does. Cool. And so it again recommends the Snowflake connector. Even gave us a little sample SQL here. And if I actually hit evaluate, it'll give us parameters of all of the things it thinks we need to connect in. So database password, username, and access URL. Any other questions? Okay, we'll give it one more minute here. Feel free to come off mute or throw your question up into the chat, and we'll be happy to answer it. Okay, well, thanks for your time today, everyone. If there's any more questions, feel free to reach out to us either by email or Slack if you're up with us, and we will talk to you again. Oop,
Oh,
uh,
I questions just popping in.
exactly. Any more updates on connectors to chatbots? Um, can you give us a little bit more detail on which connectors you mean? I'm sorry. And how do we connect to supported KBs and Maestro? Okay, so great questions. So for the chatbots, we've got several that we support basically as write to. With any chatbot, all of the ones I've seen can call us directly, right? So we've got customers using Google Dialogflow. We've got quite a few using Amazon Lex. We've got some using Core AI. Basically, they just call us with a REST connector, and we support that pretty easily out of the box. We do support streaming, so for the few platforms that now allow streaming, we allow for that. Um, for write to connectors, we have not increased the write to connectors in a little while. So here are the chatbots that we create. And by that, I mean, we will actually create a configuration for these chatbots to, at the very minimum, create intents, and at the maximum, actually create full dialogue flows for them. So in order of capability, Watson Assistant dialogue and action, we build intensely to. Amazon Lex, we build down to the intent and answer level. Same with Core AI and Cognigy. And then Azure Knowledge Base, we build to the intent level. And basically what that means is as you're over in the Curate tab, you can select multiple intents and then export. And when you export, we're going to give you a load file for that chatbot platform that'll bring in the question, the intent, the answer. For Watson Assistant specifically, we will generate you a conversation. Like here's an interesting one. Like we actually recommend um, this be a conversation, right? So we've got an internal model that kind of looks at what the question is, and we can turn this into an actual full action. So I'm going to click on the button here, and this is going to turn this into a full multi-turn conversation um, as we do it. Actually, let me do a full. Let me do a different. I'm going to ask a little bit more leading a question. How do I purchase Cognos? And this comes back to some of the like original functionality of NeuralSeek. Okay, so if I ask this question against the IBM repository, I get a fairly generic answer, like just go to the website. But if I come over here into Curate, right, I might want to take this and I might want to generate a conversation from it. And so this is going to try to generate a multi-turn conversation from it. And so, boom, you can see it did. So this is what we generated. And you can see that we automatically said, hey, we're going to have to generate a couple of dynamic variables in Assistant. So we said name, customer number, account number, sys date, which is a magic variable in Assistant, and sys time. And I can actually enhance this conversation. Let's say, what might we want to enhance it with? Make sure you ask how many total users. And there you go. How many total users are we purchasing? And so from here, I can again take this, and when I export it, this will load directly into Watson Assistant Actions as a full multi-turn action, which is pretty fun. Allows for a very quick and easy build because all those variables are going to come across as well. So hopefully that answers. And then yeah, a couple more questions here. Secrets are created here inside the configuration tab. So an administrator would come in under secrets, you would add in the name of the secret. So the name of the secret is going to be what's shown to the user in Maestro, and then they can type in a value of whatever that secret is. And it could be something huge. Like if you're connecting into Google, this may be an entire JSON field, right? It may be the JSON key that you're given. If you have NeuralSeek on-prem, you can also define a secret by setting an environment variable in OpenShift, and that will come in dynamically as a secret as well. And then connecting to supported KBs in Maestro. Well, the easy way is any KB that you have connected inside of configure is available in Maestro here under the KB connection, right? So this KB search is exactly what's in configure. Otherwise, you would make a REST call or use one of our predefined connectors to talk to your KB. Now, one feature that we're doing is we're going to put dedicated connectors for all of our supported KBs directly here inside of Maestro, so that you'll be able to talk individually to Milvis and Pinecone and Discovery without having to use the specific KB that is configured here. It'll give you a little bit more flexibility. Okay, well, thanks so much, everyone, for joining. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.